Hi, Tom here from RC Plane Lab. In this video, I'm going to show you how to repair the horizontal stab on an E-Flite Pacer PA-20. Okay, so we got the wing off to make it a little bit easier to work with. This is an airplane that Ron bought at a swap meet, and he failed to inspect the horizontal stab. You can see there in the video what I'm talking about. Ron did say that he would have bought the airplane anyway, even if he had inspected it properly. So be that as it may, telltale sign, you can see the cool popsicle stick repair here. And then you can also see, hopefully you can see this in the video, the slight puckering of the covering right there where the brake is. So we're going to try to repair that today for you, show you how I repair that, and we'll quit talking and get doing. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut back the covering from the area so I can see what it is we're dealing with. And the way I've looked at doing this is I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just cut right inside the structure, right along here, here, and probably go ahead and cut it there close to the fuselage, peel that up so I can see the structure underneath, and then we'll decide how to proceed once I see underneath what it looks like. This is a little electric airplane. It's not very heavy at all, so I'm not going to get really involved with the repair process. It is the horizontal stabilizer, so it is a pretty important function of the airplane, but because it's not nitro powered, it's not going to have a lot of vibration. It's a slow flying airplane. I'm not going to get too involved or too wrapped around the axle about how much I beef up the joints, but not really going to know what we got unless I get this covering off. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Pull my glasses off here so I can see what the heck I'm doing. Now this sounds weird, but basically I've got a brand new sharp X-Acto, and I'm just going to cut deep enough to cut through the covering. I understand that I'm probably going to be cutting into the structure a little bit, but I'll go over the structure when I'm done with a little bit of thin CA, and that'll soak in there and that'll help stiffen everything back up. So without further ado, let's start cutting here. And like I said, I'm just going deep enough to try to cut the covering. I don't want to cut the structure if I can avoid it. And a really brand new sharp X-Acto blade is a must here. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to cut this covering about halfway between both edges of the balsa structure. And what that means is I'm trying to leave as much balsa on this side of my cut as I have on this side of my cut. Hopefully that makes sense, because I want the covering, I would like to leave as much original covering as I can on the structure so that when I apply the patch, that covering will have something to stick to. Hopefully that makes sense. Again, just inside here and just deep enough to get through the covering. And I may have to go over a couple places a couple times. I'd rather do it that way than to have it cut too deep and too much into the structure. So I'm just trying to get my knife underneath my cut, and you can see right here it's starting to peel up. It looks like I'm going to have to cut a little bit deeper here because it looks like there might be a seam. So I'll get my knife back into my original cut line here and go just a little deeper. Might be helpful to go just a little bit at a time. You know, pick one section, do that, peel the covering back, move on to the next section. And Ron says he's okay with not having these cool popsicle sticks on there anymore, so hopefully I'll be able to remove those with the covering. And you can see what essentially I'm doing here is I'm just trying to create a flap, for lack of a better word, but I want to leave as much of that original covering as I can so that when I apply the repair piece, I'll be able to overlap that and create a good seam. This linkage is going to be in my way, so I'm going to try to see if I can pop this off of here and get it out of my way. It didn't give me too much room, but See if we can pull this out some. There we go. Trying to be really, really careful here up next to the fuselage because this is where a lot of that strength is going to be required. So I'm trying not to get too deep into the balsa there. Go. There we go. So there you go. Cut it off, kind of one piece. There's the cool popsicle stick repair. We got that off, and you can see that popsicle stick was only stuck to the covering. And I mean, how much strength did that actually, impart to the stab? So good idea, but in execution, not so much. So looking here at the stab, now that I can see the structure, we can kind of see right here, there's a little bit of this little guy here. I'm going to go ahead and connect that so it's not flopping around on me. You can see right here at the point of the knife blade, that little bit of movement right there in that corner. And then if you look up here, you can kind of see a little bit of a gap right here from the factory. It looks like the fit of that. You can see I slipped my knife blade right in there. So a little bit of CA here, and then you can see this break right here. When I flex that, hopefully you can pick that up. And then we notice, looks like there's a break right here too, right here where they cut the pocket for the hinge. A little bit of a break there. But otherwise, I don't see any other damage. And because this is such a lightweight airframe, I'm just going to use thin CA, and I'm not going to block anything up or create any reinforcement or anything because it's such a lightweight airplane. I don't want to bulk up the back of the airplane, making it tail heavy such that we have to add weight to the nose. And it's electric, and it's not a fast airplane. So I think some thin CA in here is going to strengthen that right up. And I think that's going to give us plenty of strength moving forward. So that's what I'm going to do. So I've got my thin CA right here. Again, I'm going to try to saturate these joints where these breaks are with this thin CA, and I'm also going to take some thin CA and sort of go over this area where I cut into that to get the covering off. Hopefully that makes sense. And I'm kind of eyeballing to make sure I'm not imparting a warp into the horizontal stab, and to make sure I don't, I notice that where the elevator joiner wire, there's a little bit of a delamination going on there too. So I'm going to put a couple of drops of CA in that and hold that together to make sure we have a good solid connection between the left and the right stab. And then I'm going to level them, make sure everything is level before I go and add the glue to all these joints. So I'm going to do that back here first. See if I can get I'm going to move the rotor out of my way. There we go. I'm just going to give that a clamp. And you'll notice I've got this cool little straw on my thin CA, and that makes it really, really super handy to get the glue exactly where I need it. These are available at most hobby shops. I've also seen these at places like Michael's and some of the other arts and crafts stores. So really handy little tool. Probably ought to be a tool of the week someday, just that little straw. But anyway, I'm going to direct the CA right here on this joiner, and then I'm going to hold that for just a second, and then I'm going to add just a little bit more. That's the beauty of these little straws, man. You can make that CA go exactly where you want it, just like that. I'm going to take my paper towel, wipe off the excess. There we go. Perfect. And something else that Ron and I noticed on the stab itself, there's a little bit of a crease right here in the covering. Hopefully you can pick that up here on the video right here. So instead of doing all of this on the elevator itself, What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the tip of my X-Acto knife and poke a few holes in there and saturate that area with thin CA also. The structure is so thin here, I'm not sure that it warrants cutting this open. I think I would do more damage cutting this apart and trying to repair it, or cutting the entire stab off and rebuilding the stab. It's just not worth that much work to me. It might be a different story, but so what I do is I just poke some holes, saturate with thin CA, and then it should be good to go. It's not much of a break, but it was enough to crease the covering, and it does flex a little bit. So I'll demonstrate that now, and then I'll demonstrate it again after I've added the adhesive. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Just going to saturate that whole area, and I'm going to go ahead and run my CA all the way around my seam that I cut. And now I'm going to add CA to this other area right up here. And I'm going to go ahead and give that a nice liberal amount. I want that CA to soak deep into the fibers of that wood and create a really strong joint. And then we'll give this area here a little bit too. While we're waiting for that to cure, I'm going to go ahead and poke the holes back here in this little area of the elevator and show you how I go about repairing that. Basically, I'm just puncturing the covering just enough to get glue, CA, past the covering and into the wood. Now, it is going to leave a little bit of a stain, a little bit of a mark on the covering, but we've got a handy dandy little tool to get rid of that stuff called debonder. So when I'm done with my repair back here, I'll take a little bit of a debonder on a cloth, and that cured CA will come right off. But it is on the bottom of the airplane, so it shouldn't be too noticeable. And I've got a paper towel here handy, and like I said, I'm just going to saturate. So that CA has wicked into the joint, and Ron has assured me that this is not going to be a show airplane, so this little bit of a mark is okay with him. If this is going to be a show airplane for you, you might consider maybe removing the stab entirely, rebuilding it, recovering it, or do the same thing I did here, cut the covering back and apply a new piece of covering once you've got your repair done. So yeah, you can see what I did. I just poked some holes, saturated that with thin CA, wiped off the excess, and actually I didn't leave much of a mark at all. So I'll come back with the debonder here in a little bit, wipe that clean, and you'll hardly notice. And you'll be able to come back also with an iron when I have Ron apply the patch of covering here. He can hit that with the iron, and that little pucker will disappear. So now I think everything is pretty much cured up. It doesn't take CA very long to cure. So if you look now, nice and solid, and we don't have that weird, ugly pucker flexing thing going on here. And then I'll turn this so we can see it in the other view. You can see how much more solid that is. It's actually twisting the entire fuselage now, as opposed to just flexing on the stab. So that's how I repair a little balsa. And I wanted to mention, that's one of the beauties of balsa, is it's so versatile. It's so easy to repair. You just can't do this. I mean, I know you can repair foam airplanes, and I have, but the versatility of balsa and the ease with which it is to repair is really unmatched in my opinion. So there you have it. Pretty easy, straightforward repair. We didn't cut any parts, and this is a small airplane, so we've got as much strength as it had originally. So hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you're not intimidated too intimidated to try this on your own. And thanks for watching.